Happiness slips away the moment you start believing someone else has to approve it. The question isn't simply whether you need permission to be happy. The real question is far more unsettling. How many of your choices have never truly been your own? Hidden behind everyday decisions is a pattern that silently shapes careers, relationships, ambitions, and even the way people define success. Most never notice it until years have already passed. Be authentic sounds simple, yet it may be the most difficult decision a person can make. Authenticity demands giving up something many people protect at all costs: universal acceptance. That is why one idea from The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga has challenged millions around the world. It suggests that freedom begins the moment approval stops being the currency that determines your worth. But there is one principle that makes this idea far more profound than it first appears. Countless people spend their entire lives trying to solve unhappiness by changing jobs, relationships, cities, or routines, while ignoring the invisible force that keeps pulling them back to the same emotional prison. And when you discover the final principle of this journey, you'll understand why genuine happiness never arrives through permission. It begins with a decision almost no one is willing to make. The invisible prison of approval. Why you handed your happiness to other people. The strongest cage is the one you mistake for love. Very few people wake up one morning and consciously decide to live for someone else's approval. It happens gradually. A compliment changes your behavior. A criticism makes you hide part of yourself. A rejection teaches you that being accepted feels safer than being authentic. Over time, these small adjustments become an entirely new identity, one carefully designed to avoid disappointment rather than express who you truly are. This is why the search for approval is so deceptive. It disguises itself as kindness, responsibility, maturity, or even humility. Yet beneath all those noble appearances lies an exhausting negotiation where every decision is filtered through one silent question: what will they think of me? The tragedy isn't being judged. The tragedy is surrendering your own judgment before anyone else even has the chance. Notice how this pattern quietly influences every area of life. Opportunities are rejected because they might attract criticism. Honest conversations are avoided to preserve harmony. Dreams are postponed until the right time, which rarely arrives. What feels like caution is often fear wearing a respectable disguise. Every attempt to satisfy everyone strengthens the invisible prison a little more. The cruel irony is that approval can never provide lasting peace because it depends on something that can change overnight. The same people who applaud you today may disagree with you tomorrow. If your peace depends on their reactions, then your emotional life has been placed entirely in someone else's hands. Freedom only begins when your values become more important than your reputation. Yet recognizing this prison is only the beginning. A far more uncomfortable discovery comes next. Because the need for approval survives through a story almost everyone believes about themselves, and once that story is questioned, everything starts to change. The myth of identity. How you choose who you become every day. The past explains you far less than the choices you defend today. One of the most unsettling ideas you'll ever encounter is that many people are not trapped by their history. They are trapped by the meaning they continue to give it. Painful experiences are real. Disappointments leave scars. But there is an enormous difference between acknowledging what happened and allowing it to dictate every decision that follows. This is where countless lives quietly become stuck. I've always been this way. My childhood made me like this. It's simply my personality. These statements sound like facts, but they often become invisible contracts that excuse inaction. The longer they are repeated, the more convincing they become, until change feels almost impossible. Not because it truly is, but because the identity built around those beliefs has become comfortable. Every day presents a subtle choice. One path reinforces yesterday's narrative. The other creates a different future by refusing to let old conclusions define new possibilities. This doesn't erase the past or deny hardship. Instead, it shifts attention toward the only place where transformation can actually happen, the decision being made right now. This perspective also changes how failure is viewed. A mistake stops being evidence of permanent inadequacy and becomes information. Rejection stops defining personal worth and starts revealing direction. Growth is no longer reserved for people with perfect circumstances. It belongs to those willing to stop protecting an outdated version of themselves. But an even greater challenge appears once this becomes clear. Choosing a new identity is only the first step. Living according to it requires a kind of courage that most people spend their lives avoiding. Because the moment you stop playing the role others expect, resistance inevitably follows. The courage to break the script, when disappointing others becomes an act of freedom. The life everyone applauds may be the one that betrays you the most. Breaking free from the need for approval is not a dramatic moment. It happens quietly each time you choose honesty over performance. The difficulty is that people become accustomed to the version of you that always agrees, always adapts, and rarely creates discomfort. The moment that version begins to disappear, resistance almost always appears with it. Many mistake this resistance for proof that they are doing something wrong. In reality, it is often evidence that old expectations are losing their control. Every relationship is built on certain patterns, and when one person changes, the entire dynamic shifts. Some people will celebrate your growth. Others will feel threatened because your authenticity no longer supports the role they expected you to play. This is why trying to manage everyone's opinion is an impossible mission. No matter how carefully you behave, someone will misunderstand your intentions, question your decisions, or disagree with your path. Chasing universal approval demands an endless series of compromises until very little of your true self remains. Ironically, the more desperately acceptance is pursued, the more distant genuine connection becomes. Authenticity creates a different kind of relationship. It filters rather than attracts everyone. The people who remain are connected to who you really are, not to the character you performed for their comfort. That may reduce the number of people who applaud you, but it dramatically increases the value of those who truly understand you. And yet, this is still not the deepest lesson. There is one final realization that transforms everything you've seen so far. It answers the question that opened this journey and reveals why happiness has never been waiting for permission from anyone else. Be authentic, the decision that changes your entire life. The permission you've been waiting for has always been yours to give. Everything we've explored leads to one unavoidable conclusion. Happiness is not something another person can grant or withhold. The approval you've chased, the identity you've protected, and the expectations you've carried all point to the same illusion, that your life becomes more valuable when someone else confirms it. But a life measured by external validation can never produce lasting peace because the standard is always changing. Authenticity is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act even when fear remains. There will always be people who misunderstand your choices, question your priorities, or prefer the older version of you. Their reactions belong to their own perspective, not to your purpose. The moment you stop treating every opinion as a verdict on your worth, an extraordinary amount of emotional energy becomes available for building the life you actually want. This does not mean ignoring others or becoming indifferent. It means recognizing the difference between listening with respect and surrendering your direction. The strongest people are not those who never face criticism. They are the ones who refuse to let criticism become the architect of their identity. Freedom grows every time your decisions reflect your values instead of your fear of rejection. Now, the question from the beginning finally has its answer. No, you do not need permission to be happy. What you need is the courage to accept that happiness carries a price. Some people will not understand the person you become. That is not a sign that you have failed. It may be the clearest evidence that you have finally stopped living someone else's life. If this reflection challenged the way you see yourself, don't let it end here. Carry this question with you after the video ends. If no one's approval were required, what decision would you make today? The answer may be the first truly authentic step you've taken in years.